Legal experts are laughing at Donald Trump this week for a lot of reasons, by the way. But one of the new reasons why they're laughing at Donald Trump this week is because on Monday, he announced that he has officially filed a lawsuit against ABC News and host George Stephanopoulos over comments that Stephanopoulos recently made during an interview with Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Now, in the interview with Mace, George Stephanopoulos, he said this. And before I read this, and I'm going to have to read some other explainers on this, please understand that there are graphic accounts of things that Donald Trump was found to have done in court. So if that bothers you, here's your warning that this is coming. But here is what Stephanopoulos said to Nancy Mace again. You endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony that we just saw? So, Donald Trump, according to George Stephanopoulos, was told by a judge that you raped her, told by a jury you are liable for that rape. And because he used the word rape, Donald Trump says, aha, now I've got you. I'm going to sue you, because the lawsuit says that the statements were false, intentional, malicious, and designed to cause harm, because Trump was found liable for sexual assault, not rape. And yes, in the New York Penal Code, which was the jurisdiction that applies to where this happened, there is a difference between rape and sexual assault. But it's not that big of a difference, considering the fact that the judge in the case actually said in his ruling, in the final summation of the case, he used the word rape. The judge wrote, the fact that Mr. Trump raped her, albeit digitally rather than with his penis, thus it establishes against him the substantial truth of Miss Carroll's rape accusations. So even the judge in the final ruling said, you did. You did the R word, basically. So Stephanopoulos' statement is actually not technically, legally, by definition, untrue, because he said the judge said you did this. He didn't say you were found guilty of this. He just said that you did it. You were liable for it, which is honest. So, here is what George Conway had to say about it. Conservative lawyer, by the way, in case you're not familiar with George Conway. This complaint is completely wacko, like the person who filed it. The judge has said that in written opinions at least 3 times. Trump's theory is that since the jury unanimously found that Trump forcibly and without consent penetrated Carroll's vagina with her fingers and not his penis, and since this constituted sexual assault and not rape as defined by the New York Penal Code, Stephanopoulos libeled him by saying he had been held liable for rape, even though the judge in the Carroll case has held multiple times since the verdict that in common parlance, and the law of most other jurisdictions, forcible digital penetration is rape. In other words, Trump is suing Stephanopoulos and ABC because Stephanopoulos repeated what a federal district judge has said repeatedly in written opinions. By bringing this lawsuit, Trump will only bring more public attention to what he did to Carroll, and he and his lawyers may very well be, in fact, ought to be sanctioned. Another brilliant, stable genius move, Conway concluded. No notes, right? Conway spells it out perfectly. The judge put this in 3 wrote it 3 times in the ruling. The judge did say that. So Stephanopoulos repeating what the judge said is not something you can sue him for. And worst off, and this is honestly the big thing that gets overlooked from the E. Jean Carroll defamation trial. Everybody's focused on the $91 million, but the fact is the jury found him liable for sexually assaulting her. Do you really want to remind the public of that? Because that's what you're doing, Donald. And honestly, the public does need to be reminded of this. I'm glad you filed this lawsuit because it should put that thought in the people's brains. We're distracted by the criminal trials, by the fraud trial. The jury says he sexually assaulted this woman, and he is the Republican nominee at this point, basically. Shouldn't we pay a little bit more attention to that? Like, why are we not talking about that every day? It's mind-blowing. So, yeah, real smart move there, Donald. Not only are you going to lose this lawsuit, but this is probably going to cost you even more voters. And at this point, you can't afford to lose any more voters or, honestly, any more money. But you will lose a lot, because the countersuit that you're going to be hit with, or the legal fees at the very least that you have to pay for ABC News, that may drive you straight into the poorhouse. Well, folks, we have crossed that 1 million subscriber milestone, but rest assured, we are just getting started here at Ring of Fire. So if you're not already, please do subscribe to the channel and make sure to like, share, and comment on the videos.